Blackthorn University, nestled in the quiet town of Ashwick, was known for its ivy-covered buildings and a dark history that no one dared to speak of. 18 years ago, a tragic accident had shaken the campus to its core. During a routine lecture in the old Blackthorn Hall, the roof had collapsed without warning, crushing a group of students beneath its weight. The incident was ruled an accident, faulty construction, they said, but the whispers of the students who perished that day never truly faded. Now, in the fall of 2025, a new batch of students arrived, unaware of the horrors that lurked in the shadows of the campus. Among them were 5 strangers: Emily, a quiet literature major; Jake, a cocky engineering student; Rachel, a studious pre-med; Marcus, a brooding art enthusiast; and Sarah, a bubbly theater geek. They had nothing in common, except for one thing. They all chose Blackthorn Hall for their classes. It started with Emily. She was in the library late one night, researching for a paper on Gothic literature. The library was eerily silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's pressing down on you. As she flipped through an old, dusty book, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. She looked up, and there, reflected in the glass of a nearby bookshelf, was a figure standing behind her. It was her, but not her. The reflection wore the same clothes, the same tired expression, but its eyes were hollow, its skin pale and cracked like porcelain. Emily spun around, but no one was there. The reflection in the glass was gone. She told herself it was just exhaustion, but the image haunted her dreams. Jake was next. He was in the men's restroom, washing his hands after a late-night study session. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows on the tiled walls. As he looked up into the mirror, he froze. His reflection didn't move with him. It stared back, its lips curling into a sinister smile. Jake stumbled back, his heart pounding. When he looked again, the reflection was normal. He laughed it off, but the memory lingered, gnawing at the edges of his mind. Marcus was working on a painting in the art studio, lost in his thoughts. The room was silent except for the soft scratch of his brush on canvas. Then he heard it, a faint whisper, like someone breathing his name. He turned, but the room was empty. As he went back to his work, he caught a glimpse of someone in the corner of his eye. It was him, standing by the window, staring blankly at the canvas. Marcus dropped his brush and ran, leaving his unfinished painting behind. Rachel was in Blackthorn Hall, studying alone in one of the empty classrooms. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with dust. She felt a presence behind her, a cold breath on her neck. She turned, but the room was empty. Then she saw it, a shadow moving across the wall, mimicking her every move. But as she stood still, the shadow kept moving, walking toward the spot where the roof had collapsed 18 years ago. Priya bolted out of the room, her heart racing. Sarah was rehearsing a monologue in the campus theater. The stage was dark, the audience seats empty. As she delivered her lines, she heard another voice, her own, echoing back at her. She stopped, but the voice continued, growing louder and more distorted. Then she saw her, standing in the center of the stage, staring back with empty eyes. Sarah screamed, but no one came to her aid. The incidents grew more frequent, more intense. Each of them began to notice strange details, scratches on their desks, faint whispers in the wind, and the constant feeling of being watched. One night, they all found themselves drawn to Blackthorn Hall, as if some unseen force had summoned them. They met in the hallway, their faces pale and drawn. For the first time, they shared their experiences. As they talked, they realized the horrifying truth. The ghosts they had been seeing were not random apparitions. They were the echoes of the students who had died in the accident 18 years ago, and the spots where they had seen their doppelgangers, the library, the restroom, the art studio, the lecture hall, the theater, were the exact places where the victims had last been seen alive. The group decided to investigate further, digging into the university's archives. They found old photographs of the victims and froze, The faces staring back at them were their own. They weren't just seeing ghosts. They were the ghosts, reliving the final moments of the students who had died. The accident had created a loop, a curse that bound their souls to the campus. That night, they returned to Blackthorn Hall, determined to break the cycle. But as they stood in the lecture hall, the roof began to creak. Dust rained down from above. They tried to run, but the doors slammed shut. The last thing they saw was their own faces, staring back at them with hollow eyes as the roof collapsed once more. The next morning, the campus was abuzz with news of another tragic accident in Blackthorn Hall. 5 students had died, their bodies found in the exact spots where the victims of the previous accident had perished. The university sealed the building, but the whispers never stopped. And if you visit Blackthorn Hall at night, you might see them. 5 figures, wandering the halls, their faces eerily familiar. They're waiting for the next group, the next cycle, the next victims to take their place. Because in that university, the past never stays buried.